Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll be going over my usual rundown of PMQs as Keir Starmer, I think for the first time, pushed questions on Brexit. And Rishi Sunak suggested that the SNP don't make very good pizza because, that's a top issue for voters, apparently. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, yes, I don't want to say anything too definite. I don't have a photographic memory or anything. But I think I'm right in saying this would be the first PMQs where Keir Starmer led with Brexit-related questions. At least since leaving the Single Market and Customs Union, possibly ever. He's normally avoided the issue, partly because he wants to fight the election on the more usual, less divisive policy areas, like the economy, healthcare, crime and so on, but also because it's been the Tories' happy place. Various Tory leaders have actually tried to steer the conversation onto Brexit. You know what they say, always do the opposite of what your opponent wants you to do. They talk absolute tosh, of course, Conservative leaders, when they have led with Brexit. But Starmer actually bringing it up like this might be a first. Obviously, the Northern Ireland Protocol talks are very newsworthy and they are of interest to MPs and the public alike. I mean, he could have brought up the tax revenue surplus and pointed out how this makes a mockery of Sunak's excuses for pay restraint. He could have talked about how the government's own policy committee has now trashed his anti-strike law plans. Either of those topics would have been very crowd-pleasing, but he wanted to focus on what is, above all, a Brexit issue. An assessment from Labour may be that Brexit is no longer the Tories' happy place. At least not this bit of Brexit anyway. You wouldn't think so to see the reaction of Conservative MPs who seemed to be cheering what Sunak was saying. Starmer asked if Sunak thought that unnecessary checks on goods should be removed. Sunak didn't. He dodged that question, just waffled. Now, this will be important for later because we all know that the settlement agreed with the EU. It's all right, Sunak saying, oh, talks are still ongoing. Yeah, good one. The deal's agreed, we know that. And it will, of course, it will require protocol checks, but it will reduce the number of goods that require those checks compared to now. So it's much better than the status quo. So if Sunak fails to deliver it, what it means is there will be checks on British goods travelling around the UK that wouldn't be necessary if he just delivered the deal. Starmer will be able to haul Sunak over the coals for that one. Starmer then said that Johnson's promises about the protocol were nonsense, and he asked Sunak if the deal means Northern Ireland having to follow some EU law. Now, of course, he knows it will. We all know it will. The protocol requires it. If I can jump ahead just for a moment, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, leader of the DUP, later with his question said that the protocol must be replaced. The protocol is not going to be replaced. After 3 years of the best legal minds in the EU, including in the UK, there were 3 possible ways to leave the EU while still preserving the integrity of the Good Friday Agreement. The backstop, the protocol, or a intended soft Brexit. The Tories opted for the protocol. They won a general election by promising the protocol. They voted to sign the protocol into law. Their prize monkey signed that deal, thus making it a fact of international law. If the DUP are genuinely insisting that the protocol must be replaced, and let's say they're not just saying it for public consumption with the intention of agreeing to a nice sounding fudge, then the wheels are going to come off Sunak's wagon if he's not prepared to bypass them. I think this is why Starmer has chosen to use his questions today for the protocol talks when he did have other options. He knows that Sunak is setting himself up for serious damage, whatever he does now. His MPs were cheering Sunak's responses to Starmer so much, you may have imagined that Labour misjudged this. Maybe Brexit is still the Tories' happy place. Maybe it's still the things that lets their leaders unite them in mocking laughter against Labour. But Starmer made the very good point that Tory MPs were cheering Sunak, pulling the wool over their eyes. With his responses, Sunak was doing what Johnson did before him, promising everything to everyone. With the deal being hidden away from prying eyes, he's implying that he's going to get a deal, which is what everyone wants. Most people want. But that it'll mean all sorts of contradictory things. That the contentious issue of physical checks and EU law will just disappear. No. Within a few weeks at most, one of two things is going to happen. First is that Sunak publishes his deal and gets battered by the Brexit purists, as Starmer calls them. When asked if there will be a vote in Parliament for the deal, Sunak dodged a little. He said that, of course, the Commons will express its view. That is interesting language. Express its view. Express its view could just be there'll be a debate, but no vote. Sometimes MPs have a debate with no vote attached to it. In reality, of course, MPs can force a vote. They can force a debate and a vote at the end of it if they want, but it wouldn't be a binding vote. It would just be indicative. So this suggests that Sunak is planning to present his settlement, but not give MPs a binding vote on the issue. And he doesn't have to, by the way, because all it is a practical implementation for something that's already legislation. You know, that would avoid a vote, which will mean relying on Labour to get it through. Tory rebels, as I say, can force a vote, but it would only be an expression of approval or disapproval. It might be that Sunak is gambling that enough of his MPs will not vote against him because it would have no material impact other than to weaken the Tories ahead of the local elections in May and, of course, the main elections next year. If this is what happens, Starmer can certainly come back to this and poke at Tory divisions over points of contention, and there will be points of contention. He can congratulate Sunak for finally putting the issue to bed. It's taken you long enough, several years, but point out that the lies about what the protocol means are now exposed, that all of those lies that Johnson told are now laid clear. Then there'll be the thorny issue of the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill. Starmer asked if it would be withdrawn. Actually, a Tory MP, Robert Buckland, later on asked if it would be withdrawn. Sunak refused to answer them both. But if he gets his deal in place, the issue will have to come up again. Even if some of the more hardline Brexit Tory MPs begrudgingly accept the deal, for whatever reason, they will still want the bill to pass through Parliament and become law. For leverage, they claim. A security blanket, more like. But that will be another source of division for the Tories. The second possibility is that Sunak does not deliver his deal at all. It all fizzles out in a cloud of dust over the next couple of weeks. Starmer will point out that the failure was because he allowed a small number of MPs to hold the country to ransom. He will say you're putting party before country, which has been quite a powerful line for him. You know, there is a majority of people in Northern Ireland in favour of a deal. There is a majority of MLAs in the currently fairly dusty Stormont in favour. And there would be a majority of MPs in Westminster in favour. There's no democratic excuse for not delivering the deal, which has already taken over 6 years and which would reduce the number of checks on British goods passing to Northern Ireland. Then Sunak will have to deal with the protocol bill as well as the retained EU law bill. Rishi Sunak really should be reflecting on the fact that the MPs right now that are opposed to his plans are the same ones who want him to fail. They're not raising cautionary objections, they are laying landmines for him, and Sunak is currently giving them the space and time to do so. Unless, of course, he has something really cunning planned, but on past form, I don't think cunning and Rishi Sunak go hand in hand. But whatever happens, Starmer is in a win-win situation here. He can sit back and enjoy the Tories cheering Sunak's every response because he knows there'll be a somewhat different response in a week or so. Then on to Stephen Flynn of the SNP. And he pointed out that gas prices have fallen, he said 75% from their peak, and he asked why gas bills are still going up in April. Sunak said that the government is spending tens of billions helping people with their bills, which is curious when you think that we used to pay the same for electricity as France, and now we're paying double. And that it's about to go up, what is it, another 30%, I think? But then Sunak said, and he said he was quoting someone from the SNP in saying this, that if the SNP were a pizza company, their products would be slow, wrong and costly. It's a bit of an odd one, I'm not going to lie. I mean, why pizza? Couldn't you say that about anything? But analogy aside, isn't it a bit reckless to talk about a political party being slow, wrong and costly when you consider how the Conservatives have been handling, well, everything? Brexit chief amongst them. We're coming up to 7 years since the referendum, and they are still tying themselves in knots over trying to work out what to do with it. Slow, wrong and costly just about sums the Tories up, I would say. Then Flynn pointed out the fall in wholesale energy prices, and it's given the government a surplus of £15 billion. He said this should be used to reduce bills, not increase them. Sunak said households were saving £900 from the energy price guarantee. No, this is wrong. It's not even something that's going to fool people. For over a year now, when energy prices have been announced, they've gone up. They went up last autumn, last spring, the previous autumn. They're going up this spring as well, and not by small amounts either. You know, if I were there, I'm afraid I'd have to tell the Prime Minister that people are really not going to feel that the government is saving them anything on their energy bills. Like when someone says they're saving something, it means they're paying less. The cost is going down, not up. All Sunak is really saying is that he could have allowed the bills to go even higher in his pursuit of helping corporate profits. Not really convinced that Sunak is going to have put people at ease with this, you know, when they find out what they'll be paying this spring. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.